viajeros, estamos cada vez más conscientes de nuestro impacto en el mundo. Escucharemos el punto de vista de una celebridad internacional sobre México como destino turístico. Ella tiene una amplia visión de maneras de viajar gracias a su increíble experiencia profesional. Tengo el placer de presentar con ustedes la semblanza de una mujer exitosísima y comprometida con el bienestar. Corre video.
La versatilidad, la constancia y el profesionalismo son parte de la fórmula para alcanzar el éxito. Brooke Shields, actriz y activista, las refleja en una sólida carrera artística. Gracias a su empatía y gran espíritu altruista, tiene una misión y visión muy claras en la vida: impulsar el desarrollo de las artes dentro de las escuelas y apoyar a mujeres y niños en situaciones vulnerables, originadas por la pobreza, la guerra o el cambio climático. Es miembro de la Junta Directiva de WIN, organización que se dedica a proporcionar vivienda, servicios y programas a mujeres y niños sin hogar en Nueva York. En Foro Vidanta, platicaremos con Brooke Shields.
Iván Chávez, vicepresidente ejecutivo de Grupo Vidanta, será el host de esta conversación.
Hello.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
¿Cómo están?
Bien.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Sean todos bienvenidos al Foro Vidanta, un evento magno, turismo motor del desarrollo. Tengo el enorme placer de presentar a una mujer bellísima por fuera, pero mucho más bella por dentro. Brooke Shields. Welcome to Vidanta, welcome to Mexico, welcome to your home.
Thank you. I don't think I'm going to go back to my own home. I think I might have to stay here.
Brooke Shields is a world-famous American actress and model. She left modeling to attend Princeton University when she was younger. By 16, she was the world's most famous face. By 14, she was on the cover of Vogue magazine. She once went to the Oscars with Michael Jackson as her date.
I think I was his date, but I don't know if he was my date. I think I probably was just tagging along.
She started modeling at 11 months old. And she has over 96 IMDb credits online. So she's a global icon, and
97 after this trip.
After this trip,
Okay.
After the Vidanta appearance.
After Vidanta. Okay.
So, Brooke, what everybody wants to know today is, what is your relationship with Mexico like? Where have you been? What have you done? Tell
So
us a little bit.
I haven't been nearly enough places, and I think that's just because the opportunity hasn't arisen for me. When I was quite a bit younger, we did a lot of many photo shoots in Cabo San Lucas, and we did for Life magazine. So that was sort of my first initial relationship with Mexico. And then years and years later, my current husband, as he likes to call himself, proposed to me at another resort in the same area, and then I find myself here. But recently, I went with a girlfriend to a different resort, and we would travel daily to Sayulita and just surf. And that was one of the first times that I was able to just be alone in a city and go outside of the resort and just spend time and eat locally and meet local people, and of course drink tequila, because that's one of my favorite pastimes. But it's what's always been important for me, and luckily when I was younger I got to travel a great deal, and we would make films in different countries and different places, is for me to be a a part of whatever the local community is. So when we landed yesterday, the first thing I wanted to do was have local food and local experience. So to me, that's always been a very important part of travel for me.
That's fantastic. One of our missions here in Vidanta is to redefine what people have come to expect about Mexico. You've been here for 2 days. I heard you've been exploring a little bit the grounds. What do you think about Vidanta, about the resort, about the people? Let us know.
What impresses me the most and was very quickly evident to me was in just the greeting, in when people put their hand over their heart. I think that we should do that worldwide. I feel like there's a sense of pride and a sense of community with all the people, and that when you meet people and they smile, it's genuine. I've only been here for the 2 days. We were able to go shopping. So I went to the mercado, is that right?
She went to the mercado and she cleaned out.
I cleaned out. I'm going to need to have another piece of luggage to go home later. But it was, I instantly wanted to make sure that I understood what the local artisans were doing and whatever was available that was indigenous to the area and to the people here.
So, we put our hand over our heart in Vidanta because the signal that we want to send to all of our guests is that you're very close to our hearts. So when you go through the resort, when people put their hand on their heart, that's what they're saying.
But I think often they don't follow it up with the actual actions that follow. It's one thing to say it, and then it's one thing to when you say, hi, how are you? And somebody gives you an answer and you listen to it. That was an essence of what I felt genuinely mean here. And I think that that's something that we can learn from Mexico.
Oh, yes. So as somebody that became, worldwide famous by, filming one of the movies in one of the second most beautiful beach, the first one is here, but the second one.
Third or fourth, maybe.
Third or fourth, maybe.
Know, somewhere down here.
You still, vacation in beaches everywhere. We looked at your Instagram account and we see you're a big fan of beaches. Tell us a little bit about Mexican beaches.
So my daughter makes me take those pictures because I would not normally be in a bikini having my picture taken, but my daughter said that I need to get more Instagram followers. So I'm supposed to take more bikini pictures, evidently. So it took a lot where it's the right angle, the right lighting.
Sounds like your daughter's a social media expert.
She's a 15-year-old, so that's all I need to say. One of them, and to me, and I think so. When I was about 15 years old, I was 15. I did a movie in Fiji, and it was, I think it's called Laguna Azul here.
Laguna Azul. Laguna Azul.
And I was 15, I'm 52 now, so just to give you an idea of the difference. I look different in a bikini now, but I fell in love with the air and the water and the sand and the salt and just the level of peace, because my life is a very busy, loud, there's a lot to it. And so I sort of fell in love with that. And we gravitate just as a family to going to the water. And Mexico is the perfect place for that because it welcomes people like myself who's just born and raised in a city.
That's fantastic. We have a lot of students in the audience, and one of the decisions as I was reading about you that I wanted to bring up in front of all these students is you were a worldwide successful model. You were doing the dream that many girls have, when they're instead of studying, they're thinking, maybe I should model, maybe I should do this. And instead you decided to pursue an Ivy League education, go to Princeton. And can you tell us a little bit about that and how, students could learn from that decision, to place some importance on education, and why did you do that?
First of all, I think that, I was very lucky to be able to even have a university like Princeton to be an option for me. My parents were divorced when I was only 5 months old, and my mother said to my father, the only thing I want you to do is put this child through school. So I was very lucky that I was the recipient of a good education. When I was in the entertainment industry and as a model, and I quickly realized that I would not have any strength if I didn't get an education. And for me, I was lucky that I was able to go to a beautiful university, and I worked very hard to get into the university. But for me, it was very important because I knew my career was not going to, being a model or being an actress really is not forever. You know, you are very quickly aged out. It's hard to make a difference as just an actress, and there are very few actresses. There's a handful that actually make it, and models that actually have a long career. And I knew that I needed to have an education to ground me, to make sure that it ensured my future. And that was the only thing that I thought, and my mother understood that. You know, she was never educated, my mother, and but she knew she wanted me to have that opportunity. And whatever level that education is available to you, an education is an education.
May I translate that to Spanish for some of the audience
If I
members?
could, I would.
I will do it. La pregunta que le hice es por qué, a pesar de que ya era una modelo muy famosa, decidió ponerse a estudiar. Se fue a la Universidad de Princeton. Y lo que respondió en pocas palabras es que para ella era muy importante tener un plan a largo plazo que le permitiera tener una vida llena, una vida de éxito y que no dependiera solo de un factor que a lo mejor no dura toda la vida. Entonces, por eso es que se pone a estudiar y hoy le ha cambiado la vida. I kind of
Exactly
said
what
something.
he said. Exactly what I said. I couldn't have said it better. Sí.
Sí.
Gracias.
So, you know, amongst, people know you for film, for TV shows. What they don't know is that you're also an amazing entrepreneur. And you have your own clothing line, and it's been very successful. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired that? And along that line, if you have any thoughts about Mexican fashion or anything that goes along with your businesses.
I think that I'd been approached many times to put my name or my face on a clothing line. And nobody ever really wanted to know my inspiration or my thoughts. They just wanted my name and my brand, and they wanted to exploit that. So it took me many years before I understood that I needed to develop my brand, understand what it meant, and try to find companies and outlets that would represent that. So I was lucky enough to recently, about 2 years ago, partner with QVC, which is a direct sales company. And they were the first company that asked me what my aesthetic was and what I wanted to design. And again, I knew that going forward and as a legacy for my daughters, I wanted them to understand that it's important to be an entrepreneur just in your life is very important.
That's fantastic. To be able to have an example for your children like that is very important.
You can keep translating because they like it when you make me sound smart and good. So just go ahead and say whatever you want to say.
Thank you. So students in the audience, again, as a global icon, you travel around the world, you embrace a healthy lifestyle, you're a wellness example. Something that we always try to do at Vidanta Resorts is to make sure that when people are here, they have enough amenities to keep a well-balanced life, where they can work out, they can, yes, have tequila and guacamole, but there's also healthy options and really places where they can enjoy together. We think it's key in tourism to be able to offer that when they travel. When you travel, is that a factor in your decision-making? And when you're on the road, how do you stay, in such incredible, shape and everything?
The first thing I check out in any city is where there's a gym, where there's an option. So I also think that it's important, we become very obsessed in America with health and fads and everything like that, but I think the thing that's important is the combination of wellness, becoming from the mental wellness as well as physical, that it's not just about physically looking a certain way, but that it's actually being the best version of yourself so that you are able to be as strong as you can and face every day, because life's hard enough. And so when I go to a hotel or a city or any, that's the first thing I make sure that I look for, to make sure that there's an option. But I think it's easy to get lazy. And it's easy if something is not available to you. But what is amazing is you don't need, what you have here is extraordinary, because I was in the gym this morning.
Thank you.
And there's areas for spinning, there's areas for cardio, there's areas for weightlifting and strength training and yoga. And that is a true luxury. But I think that also what that does is it nurtures a sense of health and well-being internally. And that, I think, is the most important thing. But we need to keep promoting that, because healthy-minded and healthy body really are aligned.
I agree 100%. And you know, when we were researching a little bit about what to ask you, I found online that you were a vegan. But then, when I asked, where was Brooke yesterday? What did she do? They told me, well, she went to the steakhouse at Quinto, at the top of the building, and she was there for 3 hours. So my follow-up question was, what does a vegan do at a steakhouse for 3 hours?
Tell them you're not vegan. So I'm not a vegan, and I think it's wonderful if you are. I was a vegetarian for about 13 years, just because I had worked in a zoo in San Diego, and we fed raw meat to a lot of our big cats and monkeys and animals. So that was when I was in high school. So I stopped eating meat for about 13 years, but I then got pregnant in my late 30s, and it was as if a meat switch went off in my head, and I woke up and all I could do was think of meat. So I eat everything. We went to the steakhouse, it was suggested to us, and because I wanted as much local.
What did you try there?
I ended up eating mostly fish, but we also had, what's the crispy, the one in the pot with the avocado?
I'll tell him that when I asked you earlier, hey, what did you eat? Backstage, her
Pork.
response was, carne, carne, carne.
Carne. So we started with that, and then I also got crawfish and tuna and everything, but we had the crunchy, there was crunchy beef, there was an empanada, there was a lot of deliciousness, and spicy, and tequila.
Yes. Tequila is essential for a well-balanced diet.
It's a side dish, right?
Yes, it's a side dish,
thought so.
always. It's the base, like you said, for the food that's good to come. Have you ever had a crazy foreign dish that's a little unusual that people would, think, or a memorable dish, or any sort of dish or cuisine that reminds you of a certain place?
I think probably the craziest food I've ever tried has been in Japan. I think the lot of things that are still alive when you get it, and it was a bit of a commitment for me to try. And we were in Bali once with my husband and for our honeymoon, and they sent us as a wedding meal everything baby. So there was little baby pigs and little baby, and that was a bit tough for me to stomach. So I kept trying to throw it over my shoulder into the woods, not out of disrespect, obviously, but because I didn't want to leave my plate full. So that was a bit odd for me too.
So in summary, you prefer Mexican food?
I definitely prefer Mexican food, but real Mexican. I think we get a little off track at home with regards to Mexican food. I think that the authentic Mexican food, I think I'm more of a fan of than what we tend to sometimes do with it in America.
Yes, I like to believe that it's a tourism strategy to spread Mexican food throughout the world that is good, but not amazing, so that people come to Mexico to have the amazing version of it.
But I think if you really want good, what we had last night, every flavor was, I love to go to a different country and really understand the culture and the tradition, and a lot of that usually comes through the culinary manifestation of, and the celebration of that, and the communal, what you do as a family and when you eat, whatever that local food is.
Correct. So, one of our missions in Vidanta and everything that we do is to enrich the lives of people that interact with the company, whether it's guests, whether it's our coworkers, the local community. That's always very ingrained in our hearts. So I wanted to ask you, you have a similar view in terms of philanthropy. You have a foundation called WIN, and could you tell us a little bit about that? And
So over the years, I've been a part of many different organizations and charities, and I realized that I was starting to become very thinned out. I was going to too many events and on too many lists, and I wasn't really making a difference. So I went to a friend of mine who had been running for office and then decided she was going to put all of her effort into helping women in New York. And the homeless population in New York is staggering. Homelessness in New York is rampant, and many of these families are women with children, and they're either transitioning out of domestic violence situations. Many have jobs, but they've lost their homes. And what WIN does is we have different properties throughout the boroughs, and we provide housing, so that and education for women that don't know necessarily how to get a job. And then for those that do have jobs, we provide childcare. So it's really about changing the face of homelessness in New York, predominantly with women and their children.
And where does that come from? Because, somebody in your position wouldn't have to do that, but there's obviously something inside of you that pushes you to want to help others. Where does that come from? Is that nature?
I think my mom always was, she always said, you always have to give back to everyone. If you have more, you give it away. Whatever you have, you take what you need and then you give the rest away. And I think that was just an ethic that I grew up with. Also, I think that people that are famous in any way or recognizable, or you have that type of a piece of your life, I don't really know, because it doesn't really have a lot of value if you think about it, unless you can use it for something. Yeah, you might be able to get a good table at Quinta, but I've never been one to be very overtly political. I've always maintained a reticence about that. But I have believed that if my recognition has any value and power, it's to bring focus to needed organizations. And that, to me, is what my responsibility is.
And we share in that mission because, the purpose of this forum is to talk about tourism in a context of development. So people often think of tourism as just the vacation and going home, but in places like Mexico, it's one of the most important contributors to the GDP. It creates jobs in different destinations of Mexico, and it really, the value chain from service providers, local service providers, hoteliers, taxi drivers, tour operators, it creates jobs and it creates construction, and all of this development is really the engine. So you bringing focus to Mexican tourism is helping that mission. So we appreciate that.
Well, thank you. But I also think that mission, that message is about creating pride. It's about giving people a chance to provide for their families and be proud of going to work every day. And I think that that's internal. So I think tourism is irresponsible if it doesn't immediately feed back into the community, because that's the bloodline. That is the pulse, and that is the only thing I believe that will create longevity.
When you decide where to go in the world, how exactly do you book? Because aside from students, some people in the audience are also tour operators, or they have marketing platforms. And what are your personal steps? You're sitting with your daughters, you want to go on vacation. Who decides where to go? How do you book it? How do you choose it?
It deals with proximity, because my kids only have a certain amount of time off from school. So we have to sort of find places that we could easily get to, that we can afford to get to, fly to, or whatever. And it's usually a mixture of, we just recently came back from being in India. We're spending next New Year's in Africa. My girls are going to be going to school within 4 years or so, and we wanted to experience different cultures and different travel as a family. And again, I understand how lucky we are that we're able to do that. But it was important for us as a family so it's always important for us. We just came back from India, and we were there for about 12 days total, and we immersed ourselves in the culture, and it was shocking at sometimes, it was scary at others, it was glorious and beautiful, but all of it, we came away with understanding a bit of how the heart works in India. And that I think is important for everybody, because I think it breeds empathy, and I think for us as a culture, we've lost a lot of that empathy, I think, as a people in my world.
So, that's a perfect example of a trip that enriches, the culture of your daughters. Have your daughters been to Mexico? And if they haven't yet, what impression do you think they would take of the Mexican people and Mexico as a country?
I know for a fact that my younger daughter would be absolutely overwhelmed by how kind everybody is and how they smile. And I think my older daughter would probably never come back home. I really think she'd be like, and I'll see you, Mom. I'm done. Weather-wise, obviously, food-wise, Mexican food is their favorite food, even though they haven't experienced this Mexican food.
Well, they can come anytime, please, and experience it. So, the little things that make a vacation, luxurious. What are your favorite, little things that make a luxury hotel so amazing? Are there certain details that come to mind? Is it the people?
Again, I think it's being made to feel welcome, that you somehow have belonged here the whole time, that you somehow are coming home rather than leaving home and experiencing something, that you're a member of a community or a family, that you're not a trespasser, and whether it's a little Be Cool towel, or a great bottle of water, or just a bit of coffee, or something that says, here, this is our family, come to our table and do that. So I think that it's actually really small. I think they're little things. I think this is an extraordinary resort visually, and every amenity you could possibly want. But if people were not happy to work here, or angry, even the alligators are happy. They just kind of reach their head up, wink at you, and they just keep going. They're fine. But I think if you are in an environment, and I've been in many environments where the local community that are working really hard to be in that community and work for people that are coming there, they're not happy. And when that happens, I think it taints the entire experience.
Yeah, as a company, what you described is at the core of everything that we do.
My face is really big. I'm really big back there. Sorry.
As a matter of fact, year after year, our company ends up being in the top 10 companies to work for in Mexico, because we believe that the core of the experience for travelers is that human contact when they come. And so even our alligators vote us into the top 10 companies to swim at.
But I also think that it's people, you don't just want people to come here one time. You want people to return. And I think that that's a huge piece. When you're creating a return destination, you're asking people to commit to the environment, the people, the place, the nature of all of it.
Yeah, and Mexico, we consider ourselves lucky from a tourism standpoint, because we're next to the United States. So what we try to do, and what we always encourage in the industry, is that everything we do is with that repetition in mind. We want not just our resorts to be the home away from home for everybody, but the whole nation of Mexico to become a second home for people that are looking to experience culture and do it nearby. And so that's a mission that we share as a country.
And the distance is not far. So I think that that's an important, and I think tourism is the most I think, one of the most important elements of all of it, because we need to share cultures and then learn from each other and then experience it, and I think that that's just enriching.
That's fantastic. So there's a lot of aspiring actresses that probably look at you as a model of what they can do with their life. And is there any general advice or particular advice that you could give them to really reach what it seems like a happy, well-balanced life? You've taken acting into an icon, into a lifestyle, into so much more than that. You've created a beautiful family. How do you manage all of that?
I don't think you ever feel like you have it all managed. I think, every day I'm just trying to navigate my day. I think for people who want to go into the acting profession, it has to be undeniably the only thing you can't live without. I think as a hobby, you have to be extremely lucky in this business, I think. And you also have to earn a thick skin, but still be able to be vulnerable, because you will get no so many more times than you will ever get yes. And I've been turned down and rejected more times than I've ever been given an opportunity. And you have to be able to take that hit and get back up and say, okay, I'm going to go here now. And I think that that's an important piece to it. I also think you need an education, because it's going to help you inform every character that you play. It's going to help you inform how you deal with the difficulties of the business side.
So what type of people do you keep around in your life that's around you? Because you're somebody with a very positive energy, very happy. They say that we're an average of the 5 people we see the most, that all of us, that's how we blend our personalities. But so the people around you, what kind of people are they? How do they influence you, and who are they?
I rely on a very small group of people. I think my mother taught me when I was very little to be my own best advocate and my own best cheerleader and my own best, soul supporter. And I think that, that can be lonely, but I think it also, if you can rely on yourself, you then know that when it really gets difficult, you are still taking care of yourself, which I think is very important. And it's hard to do if you're a mom or a student, anybody, it's very difficult. But I don't have a lot of people around. I have a very select few, and I don't travel with a huge entourage. Although after this trip, I think I want every one of you with me all the time, because it's been lovely. But it's people that you trust, but people that represent you when you're not around. So I can't have somebody speaking for me or representing me who isn't positive, who isn't smart, who isn't kind. They are an extension of me. So, it's hard to find people like that, but I have an assistant, I have a publicist, I have a babysitter, and it doesn't get, my circle is very small, because it's hard to trust a lot of people.
Specific questions. Have you been to Mexico City?
I have not, but, so Jaime Camil has become a new, very good friend of mine. I'm working with him in the States on a television show, and he keeps telling me that I need to come to Mexico City. So I really would, that'll have to be my next trip.
So the first thing, when we invited Brooke to join us for the Vidanta Forum, she called her friend Jaime Camil, and he knows my father very well, and he said that's legitimate, take it, go for it. So we have to thank Jaime for confirming.
I said, so are these people legit? Are they real? Like, when I get there, is what they say going to actually be what they're doing? and he gave a glowing review of everybody that was involved. So I said, okay, I'm good.
And in terms of beach destinations, you've been to Sayulita, you've been to Vallarta. Have you been to other beaches in Mexico, Cancun or any others? Or?
I have not been to Cancun, and it clearly, everybody keeps saying you have to go to Cancun and Tulum, I believe, and I have not yet been there. When I grew up, we were in the Bahamas a lot with my dad's family, and sort of that became, it's so quick to get there from New York, and but clearly
so
now,
lots to explore still.
To
so that's
explore.
Wonderful news. Can you tell us a little bit about what are your next projects? What is Brooke Shields going to be doing over the next couple of years? Is there any film you can share? Any TV shows? What else is next? Or companies? Anything you can share?
So right now it's predominantly the clothing line, and then the offshoot of that is accessories, shoes, and and sort of everything that goes into what it is to have that type of a brand represented in clothes and coats and scarves and things like that. We just wrapped Jane the Virgin, which is a show that's on the CW in the States with Jaime, and we will be starting the next season probably at the end of July. And it's the end of the show. There's our last season, and then we'll hopefully be going on to another show together.
Jane the Virgin, that's where Jaime Camil is
That
your
is,
co-star.
yes, I'm his co-star. He's one of the leads, and Gina Rodriguez is the main lead, and I've just joined the cast.
Have you met or have you worked with any other Mexican actors or actresses along your career?
I haven't, and it's a whole world that I think, and actually I've talked to Jaime a lot about this, because he said there's a whole world there, and there's different businesses that I find fascinating that I would like to get to know, but definitely from an actress standpoint, I would love to.
And filming in Mexico, is that something that's happened through any of the episodes? Or?
Give me a call sheet, I'll be on time.
Okay, so I think we're going to open to audience questions soon. So I want to remind everybody to tweet and use the hashtag Foro Vidanta to send in your questions. Vamos a abrir muy pronto a preguntas del público. Les queremos pedir que por favor pongan sus tweets en las redes sociales con el hashtag Foro Vidanta para que empiecen a caer las preguntas. So, while the questions, start rolling in,
pouring in,
and
they're breaking the internet.
From the students, is there a particular place in this resort or Mexico or anywhere else that you would like to share with your friends when you go back? And tell them, if you could bring back one thing and they ask you, hey, what did you see over there? What would you highlight the most?
So I probably would talk about where you grow all of the produce and the vegetables. Just remind me of...
Alma Verde, the Vidanta farm.
Yes,
the Vidanta farm, yes.
Just because I think that, just the weather and then, there's...
They took you already
richness.
to the farm?
Yes.
You went?
Yes.
Perfect.
And I was eating from the farm last night. And to me, I think that's a very important piece. It's that the terrain and the actual area is also giving off the fruits of what the soil is, and I think that to me, that's important, especially because we're becoming much more conscious of health and food, and that's just an important piece, because I think it creates an overall lifestyle. Yeah,
and so nowadays, when kids grow up in the States or Mexico or wherever, they never get to see this, right? So I have a 2-year-old and or even older kids that don't know where bananas come from, where lettuce comes from. So what we try to do with the Vidanta farm is to really create an experience where people can come and understand, how this works and how it's organic, and to interact. And we believe that's the future of entertainment. People want to understand how to be in contact with the earth, and how to interact with it. So what you saw was a little test site. So we did it for a year. It's a small one, and we have a huge one that is coming to interact and and to show the kids that this is what can be done in Mexico. And we're very lucky here because all of this land, as you can see, we have the river next door, is land that over thousands of years, the sediments of the river were very rich, and that's the earth that accumulated, and that's what we're standing on now. So we were very surprised to see all the different varieties of fruits and vegetables that grow there. So in essence, what you were tasting in that farm is those thousands of years of, Mexican nutrients that,
And
are
the
everywhere.
sustainability of that, from a nature standpoint, but also just in the soil, and it comes back out and it feeds us, and it not just creates jobs, but it also, this is what I think, the circle is, and I think that's a very important. Is that my husband calling?
This is your current husband.
That's my husband calling, my current husband calling. Stop talking, you're talking too much.
When you choose where to go, do you look at sustainability factors? Does that influence where you vacation, what they're doing, and what impact they're having?
It definitely does. I think it didn't always used to. I think I fell into the trap of, you just go and you don't even really think about that. But over the years, I've become much more cognizant of how much we waste and what that is. And as a mom of 2 young girls who don't always understand that. They don't understand waste as much, and repurposing, or when something comes from an environment that doesn't have a lot of, and is not sprayed or made to look better than it tastes. That it's important for me now, and it's my responsibility for my children. So where I was lazy maybe when I was younger, or just ignorant, now I realize I have to be more aware.
Yeah. We believe that's the trend going forward as well. So now, as you can hear, the questions are rolling in. Arroba Constanza Yu, ¿qué crees que sea lo mejor de México? What do you believe is the best of Mexico? The best that Mexico has to offer?
The people. I really have to say the people, because I mean it. I don't. I mean, that might sound like the right answer, but for the smiles that you encounter, the shining, beautiful skin from the environment, not just because they're giving you a piece of their heart, but you sort of, I live in a city that's loud and constant, and everybody's moving and fast, and people bark a lot, real New Yorkers, real native New Yorkers are actually the most loyal people you'll ever meet, but it takes a while sometimes to chip away at it. But just encountering people, and I think the pride in the country is, it's infectious. So I think that, yes, you can say it's beautiful, the food's amazing, all of these amenities, but without a people, it's not worth going.
So, just to compare New Yorkers, we were talking about being neighbors, earlier when I was 11 years old in the same building, and
I was 15.
the friendliest New Yorker
Imagine.
you will ever meet is Miss Shields.
I'm a little older than that, but I was going through a very rough time in my life, and I was living in an apartment building, and his sister was there, and she had 2 little dogs, and I was sort of communicating better with animals at that point than human beings, and so I think I communicated with the dogs, and then ended up, you were a little boy, and a sweet little boy, and you're still a sweet little boy.
It's a pleasure to come back full circle, a few years later. But so the last question from the audience, this is @Mary1708. ¿Qué tan difícil fue encontrar un equilibrio entre tu vida personal, carrera de actriz y modelo?
Well, no, just kidding. I didn't understand a thing that you just said.
So she would like to ask, how difficult was it to achieve a balance between being a student, being a professional, living a...
When I went to university, I left my day job. I stopped working, but I got to back up a little bit. When I was a kid, I only worked after school, and I only worked on my vacations. So modeling would call me, and they'd say, well, we have a job for you at 10 o'clock, and my mother would say, okay, we'll see you at 3 p.m. And they'd say, well, no, the job's at 10. And she'd say, well, then get somebody else because my daughter's in school and she's not available till 3. So from the time I was a little kid, education was always primary. So by the time I got to university, I had been working for decades. and I did not want to work. I only wanted, so I lived at school, lived at university, and I really made school a priority. Being recognized was a bit difficult. But once I finished my freshman year and people realized I was serious about studying, it all just balanced out. But I don't know if you ever feel totally balanced. And I think that, my daughters get lazy and they don't want to study. And I believe the harder you work, the better you'll do. So that was the most important thing to me was, getting good grades.
That's amazing. So, Brooke, on behalf of Vidanta, on behalf of the audience, on behalf of Mexico, what you've done today for Mexico and the way you express and your love for the country is really amazing. We want to thank you so much for accepting the invitation, for spending time with us, and for being an overall amazing human being, an ambassador of everything that we do here. So from the bottom of our
I'm
hearts,
definitely not leaving.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been
Thank
a
you
real
very much.
treat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke, for being here. As Group of Vidanta, we want to give you this recognition. It's a Whittle Tower. It's a handcraft. Thank you very much.
Tell me the name of this again. Sorry.
It's a Mexican tower. It's a Mexican craft
And where you from?
Arte Huitol.
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 Tol.
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 Huitol. Very good.
Yeah, there we go. This is beautiful. Thank you.